Everyone is furious about this for one simple reason. Someone finally said the quiet part out loud about the Denver Broncos, and it shattered the comfort zone of an entire conference that thought the AFC hierarchy was already written in ink. When Dan Orlovsky leaned into the idea that Denver is not just a nice story, not just a playoff team, but a legitimate AFC title threat, it instantly crossed the invisible line between analysis and provocation. Because this isn't about hype, it's about what scares people. It's about the idea that a rookie quarterback, written off as a system passenger, just played a game so clean, so controlled, so precise, that it forces everyone to confront a brutal question. What if this is real? And what if it's happening faster than anyone is ready for? The outrage isn't coming from what was said, it's coming from what it implies. If Denver is already the first team to clinch a playoff spot, if they're talking openly about seeding and home field advantage instead of just sneaking into January, then somebody's season is about to be ruined. And that's where the tension lives. Because fans of established contenders hear this conversation and feel something slipping away. They hear Sean Payton dismissing the idea of making the playoffs as a goal, and they feel disrespected. They hear Bo Nix described as fast and clean instead of frantic and hurried, and they feel exposed. This isn't the NFL's usual slow burn optimism. This is a sudden acceleration, and when that happens, people panic. They argue. They attack the messenger. They say it's too early, too bold, too reckless. But deep down, the reaction gives it away. They're not angry because it's wrong. They're angry because it might be right. What exploded here is a conversation that started as film breakdown and quietly turned into a power shift discussion. The Broncos are sitting in a position where a win and help elsewhere locks up the division, where the math of the #1 seed is being openly discussed, and where the head coach is publicly reframing expectations. Sean Payton didn't stumble over his words. He didn't soften it. He said the first goal is not to make the playoffs. He said the goals are the division, the best seed, and the Super Bowl, and then made it crystal clear that none of those have been accomplished yet. That tone matters. That language matters. Because teams that talk like that aren't hoping, they're measuring. At the same time, the conversation turned to Bo Nix, and that's where things really caught fire. This wasn't about one good throw or one clean drive. This was framed as his best game as a pro, the moment where something clicked, where the game slowed down without losing speed. And as this story broke across the sports world, it forced fans and analysts to either lean in or push back hard. Before we go any further, if you want coverage that doesn't flinch when the narrative gets uncomfortable, make sure you subscribe, drop a like, and stay locked in, because this story isn't calming down anytime soon. The heart of the controversy sits inside the way this performance was described and what it suggests going forward. There was a clear admission that earlier in the season, Bo Nix struggled against zone coverage. There was hesitancy, uncertainty, moments where his feet betrayed his eyes. That matters, because that's usually where the optimism dies for young quarterbacks. But what was laid out here was not denial of that weakness. It was an explanation of how it was attacked and neutralized. Sean Payton didn't ask his rookie to suddenly become something he wasn't. He built a plan that gave him answers. The formations, the trips, the 4x1 looks, all of it was designed to manufacture one-on-ones within zone structures, to cut down full field reads, and to let the ball come out on time. That's not smoke and mirrors. That's coaching clarity meeting quarterback execution. And when the tape shows the ball leaving his hand before the receiver even finishes the route, when it shows anticipation instead of reaction, the conversation changes whether people like it or not. The phrase that stuck, and that keeps being revisited for a reason, is the shift from frantic and hurried to fast and clean. That's not a cosmetic change. That's a fundamental one. Frantic quarterbacks survive on adrenaline. Fast quarterbacks survive on processing. Clean quarterbacks survive in January. The no-huddle usage became a focal point because it flipped conventional wisdom on its head. Instead of speeding him up, it calmed him down. It stripped defenses of exotic looks, forced them into predictable coverages, and let a young quarterback play within a rhythm that felt familiar. This wasn't randomness, it was repetition. And repetition breeds confidence. When the ball is coming out on shallow sits, spot routes, daggers, and hitches before defenders can collapse, that's not luck, that's timing. And timing is what separates sustainable offense from a one-week spike. The pushback to this narrative has centered on the idea that it's all scheme, that it's Sean Payton doing the heavy lifting. But that argument collapses under its own weight when you acknowledge what was actually said. Credit was given to Payton, but it was paired with explicit credit to Bo Nix for accuracy from inside the pocket, throwing downfield in ways he hadn't earlier in the season. Scheme doesn't throw the ball on the right shoulder before the receiver's foot hits the goal line. Scheme doesn't calm a quarterback's feet. Players do. And when you combine that with the sudden emergence of pass catchers beyond Courtland Sutton, the discomfort grows. Franklin stepping up, Sutton being described as overlooked among true great receivers. That's depth forming in real time, and depth is what turns playoff teams into threats. This is where the AFC title talk stops sounding outrageous and starts sounding inconvenient. Because if Denver can dictate pace with no huddle, if they can simplify defensive reads, and if their young quarterback is trending toward decisiveness instead of doubt, then the ceiling shifts. And that's exactly why the original comment landed like a grenade. It wasn't a guarantee. It was an acknowledgement of trajectory. And trajectories scare people more than predictions because they're harder to argue against. The contrast becomes even sharper when the conversation pivots to Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville, not as a distraction, but as a mirror. Lawrence's surge is framed through structure, sequencing, and trust. Double motions, play action, clear alerts versus man coverage, and an offense that tells the quarterback where the answers are. Sound familiar? This wasn't accidental juxtaposition. It was an illustration of what functional quarterbacking looks like when scheme and confidence align. Lawrence cutting it loose because he believes the call will get someone open is the same psychological shift being hinted at with Bo Nix. And when you hear that drops are down, that trust is up, that the middle of the field is opening because the quarterback believes, you're hearing the anatomy of momentum. The reason this matters to Denver's story is because it reframes youth as volatility instead of limitation. The narrative isn't that Bo Nix is flawless, it's that his growth is accelerating. And in the NFL, acceleration beats seniority more often than people admit. Sean Payton's refusal to celebrate playoff qualification, his insistence on division, seed, and Super Bowl as separate, unfinished goals, reinforces the idea that this team isn't peaking emotionally, it's calibrating. That's dangerous for opponents because it suggests hunger without satisfaction. Revisiting the strongest claim again, that Denver is positioned to win the AFC, isn't about bravado, it's about context. The first team to clinch a playoff spot isn't doing it by accident. The discussion of home field advantage isn't hypothetical filler. It's a reflection of consistency. And when consistency meets a quarterback who has stopped playing scared and started playing decisive, the ripple effect hits the locker room. Receivers run routes harder. Coaches trust concepts earlier. Defenses feel less pressure to be perfect. The entire operation stabilizes. Media narratives lag behind reality because they're reactive. They wait for collapse.